A huge part of my mission on earth is to help eradicate an insidious disease on this planet called poverty. And I came into this world to help get rid of that disease. And there are many, many causes of it and things that perpetuate it and proliferate it. I also like to give people tools that are very accessible, tangible, practical, and applicable without having to go to great lengths. There is one thing, because poverty stems from consciousness. Poverty in the material plane is the outpicturing of poverty within one's consciousness. So it goes without saying, though I'm saying, that the transformation of one's consciousness into more prosperity and abundance within, and I mean not abundance of money, but abundant consciousness of love, that will breed prosperity in your world. But again, there is the dharmic factor of what you came in here to attain, which for some people is not material wealth. For some it's great wealth, and many in between. But prosperity of consciousness will breed prosperity in your life, and then whatever that looks like will be in perfect divine attunement. Like being in prison, what I just spoke of, that process is like a prisoner digging through the wall with a spoon for most people, trying to get out. From the other side, there's a tool I can give you that's like a backhoe tunneling into the prison to get people out of poverty and get rid of poverty in this world. And that principle and that practice, which fulfills the law of creation, is the practice of tithing. It is my mission and my purpose to teach this and share this principle with the whole world. And I have it set. I'll speak it now on camera in front of God and everyone. I fully plan to have this become part of the tax code before I leave this world. The tithing will be built into the actual tax structure of the government, if not this government, then the whole planet. It is imperative. Tithing fulfills the law of creation. It is a law of nature. Energy can only move halfway through the cycle of life without tithing. As you sow, so shall you reap tenfold. We've all heard that. That's only half of the law. The world doesn't know the other half. The other half, that takes you in the cycle of life, that takes you from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. That's an incomplete universal principle. The second half of the sentence, or the principle, is, as you reap, so do you return to source 1/10. Then you reap tenfold. Then you return 1/10. Guess who makes out on the deal? Simple math, folks. You give 10%, you get tenfold. You give 10% back, you give 1/10, you get 10 times. Give 1/10, get 10 times. Gee, nice deal. Is God not the best bank in the world? How much do you get in your savings account? I get 0.001% on my money that's in my bank account. How many do you get 10 times what you give? And that's where it starts. That itself, because it's alchemical, because it's done with purity of motive, with divine grace, it's alchemical and it multiplies exponentially. If and when everyone in this world is tithing 10% of all that they receive in this world, that means gross, not net, for some of you who have been asked before. Is that gross or net? You're missing the point. When you give back, does the sun meter out its gifts to you? Does the sun qualify how much light it's going to give you? Does God meter out the beating of your heart, the inflating of your lungs? It's constant. When and if, I should say if and when, because when is going to happen. Everyone is tithing and fulfilling the law of creation, poverty will not exist on this planet. And until everyone is, poverty will always exist, no matter what else happens in this world, no matter how rich anyone gets, how successful governments get. Poverty was created by hoarding. That was the evil that spawned poverty into creation. The moment the first person hoarded and did not, because that person did not believe there's enough God to go around. There's not enough for me, I'll take care of myself. Look out for number one, survival of the fittest, kill or be killed. These are the axioms that humans live by. We've heard these sayings. These are mission statements for humanity. Look out for number one. Who said that? Where'd that ever come from? That's selfishness, greed, fear, scarcity, poverty consciousness. That's what spawned physical poverty in the world. So the way to transmute that is to get back into the spirit of giving and returning to source 1/10, a pittance of all that the universe gives you all the time, without even asking, just because it loves you and God loves you. So, poverty will exist until this world has returned to this practice. What is it? How do you do it? Remember, our bodies need air, food, and water to sustain their life. And most people say that's what you need to live. That's not true. That's only what sustains the piece of flesh. Your entire embodiment is one blink of your soul's eternal eye. And even while in that blink, it's one molecule of all that you are. The only element necessary for sustaining eternal life is love. It's the only element necessary to sustain life. Is there anyone in this room who has not heard of the handful of saints or avatars or avadhuts who have lived on prana, who just have not drunk a molecule of water or eaten a morsel of food? I personally have known of 3 or 4. I know there are some charlatans and frauds out there who say they are, but that's a separate discussion. But I'm talking about people who've actually lived and embodied this. They did that as a gift for humanity to see that the only element you need to sustain life is love. And it will even transcend your physical needs for air, food, and water if need be. And there are some masters who have risen themselves from the dead to show that we don't even need air. Some funny stories that some of these masters tell of how they've raised themselves from the dead. But anyway, I was going to get into some of those leaders, but I want to get so much in time here. So, the only element necessary to sustain life is love. Therefore, the most powerful place to tithe that 10% of all you receive is the source which gives you your greatest spiritual nourishment. Now, obviously, for those who have a guru or master, it would be there. For those who don't, there might be people who are totally committed and involved in their church, and that's your whole life. You go to church several times a week, you do all the church functions, so you don't have a guru. That's your spiritual life. Then you give 10% of all your income there. Whatever is the source of your primary spiritual nourishment, you give the first 10% of everything that comes to you there. The change this will have in your life will astound you, will absolutely astound you. When I was first learning this principle decades ago, I was guided to some different writings and read of a couple of billionaires. I believe Andrew Carnegie was one who said, I had my first paper out at 16 years old and I began tithing when I was 16, and said, I will stand before you this day and say I would not be a billionaire today if I did not tithe. He said, that is what made me a billionaire. Not my brilliance or my talents. Tithing made me a billionaire. So, where do you derive most of your spiritual nourishment? I had one person ask me once, well, so-and-so said you should give and give and give and give, and you say only give 10%. I said, I'm not saying only give 10%. You give and give freely. The first 10% goes directly to the source of your spiritual nourishment that fulfills the cycle of life, fulfills the wheel of creation, and keeps invoking all of the divine, not just that source, but the whole Godhead keeps sourcing you in all areas of your life, which includes income. But remember, prosperity is health, happiness, healthy relationships, peace of mind, inner calm, serenity. That's all wealth. You have to remember that. Those are all forms of income. They're all forms of wealth. When you fulfill the wheel of life, the cycle of creation, you increase your abundance in all of those areas because you are now in harmony with creation. I've had people tell me, oh, it's just him trying to get money. It's like, look, first of all, it doesn't go to me. I'm part of a nonprofit and I have a salary. It doesn't go to me. But second of all, even if it did, that's not the point. If anyone says that, they missed the point. The tithing is a gift you give yourself. It will bless the benefactor, the beneficiary, but it's a gift you give yourself. Which brings me to the next point. It is of paramount importance that what you give You give with joy and love and happiness and consummate gratefulness. Bitter tithes will bring bitter rewards to you. They will still bless the recipient, but they will not bless you, and you'll be even more bitter. Because if you sow bitter seeds, you harvest bitter fruits. When you're planting a garden, don't you always, when those of you who've had gardens, isn't it usually the most magical, choice piece of fruit? You'll see a tomato when you plant, and you go, oh my God, I'm saving that one for the seeds. Do you find some little shriveled black thing and say, oh, that's my next year's crop? No, you find the most gorgeous one. And to prove that tithing is a law of nature, if you're a farmer and you live out in the wilderness, let's say you live 500 miles from the nearest town, how do you get your next season's crop? Anybody?
Seed.
Seed from what? Your crop. You have to save 10%. Fancy that number. Gee. You have to save 10% of your own crop, your income, you have to put aside so that you'll have an income next year. That's tithing. It's a law of nature. I underscore the word law. It's not optional. People who do not tithe are stealing money, and you're creating karma. People who do not tithe are actually killing children in Ethiopia and causing starvation. You are incurring part of the karma of the deaths that happen from starvation because you're stealing money that does not even belong to you. I've had people come to me, oh, I understand this principle. I get it. And once I get that raise, oh, I'm going to give. Oh, yeah. No. The money doesn't belong to you in the first place. It's not your money. It's just coming to you. It's like God's laundering the money through you to help oil the machine. It's not your money. It's not your money. It doesn't belong to you. And that, for people who are too attached or too cheap or too whatever, too hoarding, just remember it's not yours. It never was. It's just coming to you to move the machine. It's like the electrical current coming through something, or the air that moves a fan. It's not yours. Just let go of it. And just let it move back and watch the magic happen. And waiting till you have more to give. Let me address that. Your tithe is the very first payment you make when anything comes to you. Before rent, before food, before feeding your own children. You give back to God what belongs to God and was never yours. Before rent and food and feeding your own children, you tithe. It's not your money. Watch the magic happen. Watch the magic happen. And make no excuses. Make no excuses. And it's on everything. I know some people they'll tithe on their paycheck, and then when a windfall comes, a big stock gain or a sale of a house, they go, ooh, that's nice. Oh, but here, I'll keep tithing my $20 a month or something like that. And they don't realize, wow, you just had this big win. So instead of stealing $100 a month, you just stole $50,000. So now you owe the universe $500,000. Because what you sow, you reap tenfold. So if you just stole $50,000, you now owe the universe $500,000. Where's it going to come? If you don't have $500,000 in the bank, where's it going to come? Out of your other means of income, your health, your happiness, your relationships. Because you stole from the universe. So now the universe, it's a bank. The bank functions. It doesn't need us. God doesn't need us to spin the planet around. The sun doesn't need us to rise in the morning. It blesses us by living in harmony with it. It doesn't hurt the sun if you get angry at it. It doesn't hurt God if you don't like him or her or both. Shame. It doesn't hurt God. It hurts you. So, think about it. Think about it. All right. I think I've covered it on that. And then beyond that, first 10, that 10 fulfills the cycle, the wheel of creation. Then, of course, it is in giving that you receive.